Hello, Joey. Hope you're doing well today. I have listened to the five love languages again, and it is time to talk about it. Now, while I'm doing this, I am going to be sweeping some because I'm back here cleaning the storage units. So I'm going to try and talk louder than the sound of me sweeping. So hopefully this turns out fine. If not, I'll just record it later. But essentially, The Five Love Languages is a very popular book and is going to serve as a guide for trying to make sure that you love your spouse in the best way possible, because what is important to one person may not be as important to others. And essentially what this book breaks it down to is five, and it takes the time to mention that there are various dialects, if you will. There's different ways that someone can have one of the five overarching love languages, but generally speaking, in terms of ones that are distinctly different and do not share correlations with the others, there are five. And so this comes down to stuff such as words of affirmation, quality time, gift giving, acts of service, and physical touch. And all of these have different contexts and meaning to them. What I've personally noticed, I don't know if this is important at all, is that I've noticed that quality time tends to be usually with the wife, and words of affirmation tends to be with the husband. I know that it's not like it's actually based on that, but it appears the most in that sense in the book, and it makes the most sense, I suppose, in terms of like men-women dynamics, that those two tend to lean to those sides. But that's just like what I personally notice. I don't know if there's any actual credence for that, just my observations. Now, when it comes to let's start with words of affirmation, which is one that I'm pretty sure is at least one of my main ones, if any of them. Essentially, for some people, being affirmed by the people around you is extremely important to your sense of self-worth. And for me, one of the most gratifying parts of doing artwork, for example, is if I did a good job and the people that are viewing it like it, which in this case is, say, usually my mom and sisters, right? And like hearing them talk highly about it is one of the things that makes me feel the most loved, is when my blood, sweat, and tears over whatever artwork I'm working on is appreciated. And so that for me is a huge deal. Now, past words of affirmation, I feel like for me, myself personally, if it is my primary love language or a different one, I think it's going to take me actually ending up being in a relationship with another girl. Because while you can do these things and figure them out for your family, it's mostly directed towards, mates. And so if there are other ones that are more important to me, that will be something that I will only find out in time. So yeah, words of affirmation seems to be, at least as of right now, the most important to me personally. And I think it's really important to, even if you know that a type of dialect or one of the five love languages is not your primary love language, that, or say your spouse's love language, like to not just go like all the way on the one that you have suspicions or have confirmed is their primary love language. Say I've got a girlfriend and her primary one is quality time, something like that. Like, while that is the one that you should probably cash in the most on, something that I think is very important for relationships is keeping it interesting. At least in my opinion. I suppose there are people that can probably get by without that. But like cashing in, say, like half the time on whatever is their favorite, whatever is their love language, and then intersplicing that with some of the other ones, because that way it just shows that you're being really creative, trying to think of different ways to let them know that you love them. And so another one is quality time. This is one that I personally do not know how important it is to me. Once again, I'll only really know once I'm in a relationship with a girl. But quality time is like, you're not just simply in the same room doing different things, but like you're actually, say, like holding each other and talking and looking each other in the eyes, stuff like that. It could be going and doing stuff together, like say a dinner date, or she wants to go to the movies and you guys go to the movies, stuff like that, right? I'd say the basis of quality time is meaningful conversation and meaningful activities together. Like personally, something I would want to do very badly with whoever future girlfriend is I want to take her like bike riding and say like hiking, rock climbing, stuff like that. Like these are things that I personally would really like to do with whoever Miss Royal's gonna be. And so, yeah, there are different versions of quality time. One that's a little bit confusing because it's under a receiving gifts section of the book is gift of your presence. This is a weird one because you would think it would be under quality time. It's like teetering between the two. But the example that it uses is when things are bad, and say like the example the book gives, which is this wife who, when she was in labor having their child, her husband spent part of that day playing softball, and then the day that her mother died, he also spent a significant amount of the day playing softball. And that's the thing, is that for some people, I suppose the gift of your presence in certain important situations in life is extremely important to them. And it's weird because I would think that would go under quality time, but I suppose there is a difference. But yeah, when it comes to say like gift giving and receiving, I'm actually pretty certain that this might be Autumn's number one. And if I didn't make it clear already, just because one is your primary does not mean that it is the only one that's important to you. It's just the one that you have the most need for, right? But yeah, I heard Mom like sort of making a annoyed remark because Autumn said something on the lines of like, I don't care what it is, I just like receiving things. And it had me thinking about the gift receiving chapter, and I was like, I'm gonna have to keep that in mind, because it's been many years of a lot of us, like me and Mom especially, not having a very good relationship with Autumn, because she can be somebody that will get on people's nerves and not understand why. And I'll be perfectly honest, I'm not proud to say it. I have been hateful to her in the past due to my sheer annoyance with her, but I've slowly been making a more concerted effort over time to affirm her about her art, talk to her about whatever we're going to talk about, like music, games, other stuff, whatever it might be. And those aspects that annoy me are becoming considerably more subdued, and she's much more enjoyable to be around. But I'm going to keep it in mind to, like, whenever, say, like, I've gone to go get Firehouse or something, and I didn't drink all of my Sprite or something. Like, just giving her like half a thing of Sprite, and she's like, oh my gosh, I love you so much. It's like, clearly that's very important to her. Now, there's also acts of service. Acts of service can range from doing so many different things. You can't really put your finger on one thing, but essentially the idea is that doing something for your spouse or somebody in your family who this is a very important love language for them. While mom seems to have a very high mixture of a couple of the love languages, which can be a bit overwhelming at times. I'm pretty sure that her biggest one is acts of service, because the book talks about different ways to tell what your love language is and what other people's is. And mom tends to do a lot of things for us, generally speaking. Like, I don't make myself near as good of a breakfast, lunch, or dinner as mom's going to do for me or us. Now, generally speaking, mom usually only does the breakfast in its entirety. Mornings when I can afford to, I'll help her with that. But she does a lot of things for me and for the girls. So I think acts of service is hers. Now, the final one is physical touch, and there is a distinction to be made. While sexual intercourse is part of physical touch, it is not the entirety of physical touch. It includes things such as like softly bumping into your partner, giving them a back massage, a foot massage, hugging them, stuff like this, right? And so a lot of guys can get it confused and be like, oh, physical touch has to be my love language. I, want to have sex with my wife all the time. Well, that's not quite the same thing. That's just a facet of it. Whereas the entirety of physical touch is that, like sexual intimacy, but the other things as well. Like, if you think that's what it is, but then you're like, would it make me feel unloved if I never got hugged, never got her putting her hand on my shoulder or something like that? Then maybe it's not your primary love language. Maybe it's something else. And so, yeah, this book, similar to For Men Only and For Women Only, makes me and try to take this the right way. Like, it makes me excited. It makes me enthused for when I eventually find somebody that I am trying to court into being, say, like a girlfriend, or if it goes even further, wife, whatever it might be. Because I think, considering that you have shared these books with me before I'm even in a relationship, I think I will have a huge leg up in making sure that once the falling in love high is over, which is a really big part of the book that I didn't mention all that much, because that's eventually going to die down. There's a couple months or years where you guys essentially can't do no wrong to each other. You can't keep your hands off each other, stuff like that. Well, that's not really love. There's two different types of love. And I made this up in my brain, so someone's probably said it before, but I don't know of anybody, so I made it up myself. There's two types of love. There's the type that every young person experiences, and the type that few mature people experience. Mature just meaning 30s, 40s onward. And so, essentially, real love is when you and your spouse stick it out together, make a concerted effort to affirm and love each other, and you go through the hardships of life together. And by the time that you're both elderly, sure, you may have lost, your physical looks or whatever, but your emotional bond is so strong that you can still see, when you look them in the face, you can see their younger self. You can see who they were, and that shines through them sometimes. So yeah, the five love languages. It's a very important book to understand. I think I personally, and I could be wrong, but I'd like to think I'm not wrong. Uh, I think I am a pretty loving person, um, and I think that. I hope I'm not jinxing myself. I think that whenever I do get into a relationship like that, I think I'll do a very good job, because not only do I feel like I have an inclination, considering I live with three girls, but I have these books that are pushing me forward and making me the Uberman. So, with that being said, I do hope to talk about the contents of this book with you at some point in the near future, and just like all the others, this will get a reread once I'm done with the 22 books. It's not 20, it's 22. So, yeah, I will talk to you later. Thank you. Bye.